It's so nice to see you all, fellow 3D enthusiasts. Welcome, Steve. Welcome, Rod. Welcome, Joe. Welcome, Julia. And welcome, the Captain, Slaymore. Very nice to see you again. I hope you're doing well. Haven't seen you in a while. All the better that you could make it now. I've got two things I have prepared for today, which shouldn't take long. But then I always say that, don't I? So I don't know how long they're going to take. It'll be two things. I'm going to start with the first one, which is not so much to finalize the animation I've made for Steve there, the one which we've already looked at, the animatic, through the Urban Future 7 set that ends on the backdoor 3D logo. I've rendered the high-res animation, so I've got all the still images, and I thought it'd be interesting to have a look at how do I compile them. Usually you can just hack them one after the other, either with a video editor or with Photoshop. And sometimes I do it with Photoshop if there's really no other post-production necessary. But in case we do need audio or if we do need something else, I like to use Premiere for that. And I'm going to use Premiere today. So I'll do that. That's the first one. I'm using Premiere because we need some jiggery pokery at the end. The camera move, I couldn't quite get the way I wanted it, so we can zoom in more to the logo. So I'll do that in Premiere. It's just going to be a simple post-production thing. And so that's the one thing that we're going to do first. And the other thing is that I'd like to have another crack at that Carrara Caustics animation that you've seen in the title sequence, the one where my logo is kind of appearingly swimming underwater, and there's the logo underwater, water plane above it, and it seems to be doing this. And it looks all very exciting. And I wish I had rendered that slightly longer and in 60 frames a second. Of course, I don't have the source file anymore, so I'll have to go take a crack at it from scratch. But it'll be nice because it's been a while since I've played with Carrara, and it's one of those superb softwares that if you have it in your toolbox and you know how to use it, it's just very nice to get distinct effects done very quickly. And I love that effect, and I wanted to have another crack at it. So it'll be kind of playing around. There we go. And that's what I've got planned. Let's go and break right in and open up the Premiere or Premiere. It kind of depends on which country you're coming from. I'll show you the animatic quickly that we're gonna compile. This is the folder that has all the still images in it. In all, it's about 1,200 or so, and my computer's been tirelessly rendering. These are all the pictures. So those are the high-res versions. I'll compile those in a moment. But I had already made kind of a low-res animatic, and this is what it looks like. We've seen this before. This is 15 frames a second, so that the animatic was going to be ready by the next day. And now I've got this in 30 frames a second in high res, 1920 by 1080. So that's very nice. That shall be finalized. And I'm proud of the background action, like the green guy, the blue guy that went through, the two people that are walking through. And here's the thing that I couldn't quite get right. The camera move ends about here, and this is now the post-production effect that I need to recreate. On this occasion, I've also added a light on the left, so that back door is going to be just more illuminated. That's the plan. All we need to do is make that happen in high res. Let's do it. Thank you. I like it too, Joe. I like it too. It's going to be nice. I will create a second version of that, which will be for my intro, and instead of Steve's logo, it'll have the 3D Shenanigans logo on there. I might put that in. If I find the logo, I need to dig that out, so I hope we can find it later together. Christina might be joining us later. She has internet right now. It kind of comes and goes, if I understand it correctly. So yeah, I hope she's gonna be here soon. Other than that, anyone else whom I haven't welcomed in by name, of course, you're very, very welcome as well. Anyone on YouTube, anyone on Twitch, anyone who's watching the pre-record, and anyone who's watching without chatting, that's perfectly fine as well. Thank you so much for joining. Here we go. We're going to make a new project. Oh, actually, I've got one already, which is Urban 7 Animation. This is what I used for the animatics, so I will just keep going with that project. I shall do that. If you have any questions, by the way, about what I'm doing, how I'm using it, don't be shy to ask. I will keep an eye on the chat, and yeah, pepper me with questions. I'll see if I can answer them. So Premiere, I like using Premiere for all my video editing needs that are complex. I do like Camtasia as well. That's kind of a more simple editor. I also use iMovie on the Mac. So it kind of depends on what the footage is and how quickly I need it. Marcos, thank you so much for joining. How you doing today? I don't really know what the project looks like at the moment. What have we got? We just got these two animatics there. Okay, cool. So let me go and import my images. First, I'd like to have a look though. I do this every time because I don't really trust the Premiere settings. I believe it's under there's a timeline panel here. And in timeline, it tells you how long Premiere is supposed to regard a single frame when you import it. And that is sometimes, I think by default, that's set to something longer, and that's not good for animation. So I need that to be 1 frame. So each still image I bring is going to be 1 frame, and you need to set that before you import anything with Premiere. Because if you don't, you have to kind of delete the images and then import them again. It's just, a bit cumbersome. So I can just import the whole folder here. It takes Premiere a second. And then you'd think that would be the end of it and you can just drag in all the images, but that's also not the case because Premiere is a little bit pernickety, if that's the right word to use. And it doesn't necessarily order the images. I don't know why. If you import all the images individually, like if you mark 1,000 images or so in your Windows Explorer in the file open dialog, it usually does it correctly. But if you import a folder, then you end up sometimes with images that are kind of out of sequence. Oh, thank you so much for hosting my stream, Julia. That's much appreciated. Very nice. With 1 viewer, that's good. Thank you. And the larger the images are and the more images there are, it'll take Premiere a little bit of time to import them and kind of, do some finagling in the background. And I appreciate that you always get something out of it, Marcos. I really like that. I enjoy reading your comments. It's really nice when that happens. This timeline here, this is my animatic timeline, that's only set up to have 15 frames, and that's not that's not enough. Thank you so much for hosting the stream, Steve. That's very nice. So the first thing I'll do is I'll create my own new sequence from it. Usually if you have a video clip, you can just go and right click and then go new sequence from clip, and that will kind of magically take on the properties of that video clip. So it makes editing easy. If you have something like shot in whatever aspect ratio, whatever format, and you think, hey, all I want to do is retain that and I want to just bring that in and edit that, then this is a good way of doing it. But in my case, I can't really do that because Premiere doesn't know what I want to do with the still images. So I'm going to set up a new sequence. And I could just go and set up a 4K sequence. Why don't we do that? I mean, it'll be up-res in regards to the images, but it'll be, it'll be nice. We could do that. But rendering will take a bit longer. Let's just do regular 1080. I like to use DNxHR, or actually DNxHD I need to use. And in this case, we want this one here. I believe HQX is a very good kind of preset for that. They're really complicated, kind of the naming conventions there, but this is what I tend to use because it's kind of uncompressed things that you can do there. Don't worry about 29.97 versus 30. There's almost no difference, and we don't have a 30 frame preset, so I'll just settle for 29.97. I'll call that Urban Backdoor Stills, just so that I have a stills compilation for that, and then I can, actually I'm just going to call it Urban Stills. Urban Stills, maybe. Should I do that? Urban Backdoor Stills. That's going to be good. There, that's our new sequence that opens up here. I'll go into this tab, which shows me all the images here, and all I need to do here to get around that Premiere bug is I need to just click on name once, and that should have ordered the images. If I do it again, then I will have them ordered in the reverse order, like alphabetically every file. And if I do that, just once, then it'll just order them alphabetically. I can also just go and close the whole folder and then drag the whole folder in onto my sequence. Sometimes it doesn't work, like the demo effect, it doesn't work. So I'll have to select the first frame, scroll all the way to the bottom, shift select the last frame, and then drag them all in. And that should now, why don't you want to work? What's not working here, dude? That's bizarre. It doesn't want to import my images, and I don't really know why that is. Huh. Oh, Christina, how you doing? Good to see you. Let me try it with a single image here. I don't know what's eating Premiere today. You just drag this in and you drop it on there, and it just doesn't want to work today. That's a shame, isn't it? I wonder why. What am I doing wrong? Video is where I want to put this. Audio we don't have. Why you not work? Let's test that. I suppose I do that. New sequence from clip. Does that work? With stills? Well, now it's 60 frames. That's also, it's not exactly what I wanted. That's bizarre. So I've not really seen this happen before. This is usually how I work, which is why I'm a little bit perplexed why it's not working. Huh. Bizarre. Well, let's just go do this the Premiere way then. So new sequence from clip with all the images. It has now, I guess, selected this as 60 frames a second, so this is not exactly the correct speed. It plays it twice as fast, not exactly what we want. So I guess I'm going to go and see if I can finagle this one we don't need, so I'll go take that out. This one I'll go rename in a moment. So I'll go and delete this, the one that isn't working, and just go rename that into urban backdoor stills. Bizarre. And because this is now 60 frames a second, I can either speed that up, speed the footage up, that is a possibility. It's kind of a hack, or I can try and edit the sequence settings, as I had hoped I wouldn't have to do that. But let's see. 60 frame time code. This is, yeah, see, this is the thing. It can't. Let's try this. But now I guess it's still the same playback speed. Yes, it's still the same playback speed. So it's not really what I had intended to do here. Sometimes Premiere is just a bit difficult. Let me undo that. Let me undo that. See if it's, yeah, okay, it's 60 frames again. So if Premiere is having an issue with that, perhaps I will try and drag this sequence into another sequence. So that is another thing I can try and do, that I go and create my own sequence just like I had intended it, and then just drag that sequence in. I guess that's another thing I can do, like my sequence here, and it'll be urban final, and into that I'll go and drag in this one, which I thought I had renamed. There. Oh, good stuff. Are they still switched on? See, it's good to know, because we looked at that last time, and I don't quite remember if I had switched them on or off without testing it. What do you think, guys? Shall we leave the bots in place? Shall we just leave that? Should we leave them where they are? How do I get this dragged out of the thing? You be right back, Rod. So this seems to have worked. So the only thing with this now is that we need to make sure this plays at half the speed. So speed will be 50%. And then we have it played back at the speed which the inventor had intended it. Don't worry about the frame rate. It's unless I render it like out with the return key, we'll just get a slightly hacky preview here. That's okay. That's okay. Premiere can do it as soon as it compiles the images. Or I kind of pre-render this sequence here. So where we really want to go in, and we can see the effect that this is got now here with the second light. So the second light's now made it possible that this word isn't as dark as it once was before. So there we go. This now looks much better, and we still see the traveling light. So that's all nice. I'll leave them on. Yeah, I'll leave them on. And if we need anything else, my friends, let me know, and then we'll quickly go into the whole bot setup, and we'll see if we need to. If the next bot comes along, let's have a quick look and see what they actually say, what the words say, and then we'll just take that as an advantage and say we're just going to take a key phrase and make sure that gets muted and gets the guys out. We have the upper hand here, definitely. I think I can whitelist it. Yeah, why don't we do that? Thank you for the tip, Christina. Let's do that now, while we think of it. I believe that was under streamlabs.com. This is the cloud bot now. I don't have the local bot running. So yeah, let's do this right away. So that was in CloudBot. CloudBot is on indeed, and we're looking for the mod tools, and that's the caps protection and auto permit purge. Yeah, I see. We don't want to. We want some kind of a whitelist here. Amount of caps. Well, there we go. Maybe I'll set it to something like 4, so anyone can type 3-letter abbreviations and they'll be fine. How's that? Exactly. So Ruffle should work. So let me go save these settings, and then let's try. Have you saved it? Yes, you saved it. Try Ruffle again, and I hope you're not going to get spammed now, because then if there's another 3 or 4 letter word, we'll all be fine, I guess. No, because you're the moderator, Christina, so you have special privileges. You can't partake in the words. Moderators will be kind of left as they are. So Captain, you're not a moderator. You try it again. See if Ruffle works this time. Oh, I see. So for Rod, it didn't work. Minimum amount of caps. So maximum amount of caps. That's interesting. So AFK works. So maybe I have to say, yeah, I have to. That's a shame. Because I don't see under other modules, I'll see things that in which we can say have a whitelist, and I don't see a whitelist here. Oh, auto permit, is that something? Subscribers, regulars. Oh, that's what I was going to do. Exactly. I was going to set you up as regulars, wasn't I? So auto permit regulars. Let's do that. And then at least LOL will get through. But under user management, I will set you up as regular. So let me just go and copy and paste some of you here. So Joe, I'll start with you. I'll just start with you in alphabetical order. So, oops. Do you know what? I'll do this later. I'll do this when we're off air. I'll have a look at this when we're off air. I was going to do this on last time. I totally forgot. I will do it now. Let's do this animation thing. Thank you for letting me know. So 3-letter caps are good now. 4-letter caps, be careful. So back into Premiere then. When I look at this, I can see that this up to here is the camera move, and then the camera static. So I'm going to go and first, I'm going to start my first Premiere keyframe about here, just when the camera comes to an end, that they kind of mix in between there. So I do that under Effects, and I'm going to go and say the position and the scale both need to be keyframes. So I need to tell Premiere that I want to set up keyframes for that. I don't have to set a first keyframe. If everything else will stay the same, that's cool, but it's just as finicky as other animations. I kind of get into the habit of it. I could set a keyframe here. I don't have to do this. Yeah, so anything from the beginning to the first keyframe will stay the same. And now we'll go to the last frame of vision. and we will set up another keyframe there. Well, actually, first of all, we'll make a little cut here. There's several ways of doing that. I will use just right click and add a frame hold here. Whoops, add a frame hold. And so that means now that the frame here is supposed to get held. Probably the last 2 frames because we've done the speed thing here. So let's do add frame hold. Yeah, perfect. So now the last frame gets held. And this is something I like to see a little bit longer, namely kind of 5 seconds. So I'll drag it on until about 5 seconds. So I have a total of 45 seconds. 5 seconds is just the frame here. Man. And I would like to set another keyframe literally just before I do that here. So about here, I'd say. That's the last keyframe, at which point I already want to see the backdoor logo full screen. So those things will take care of that, adding keyframes. And now I can go and hold shift, and then I'll go directly to the next keyframe here. So this is where I want to set this up. I want to go and zoom in, and I want to go, and our rotation was also a keyframe that I needed. So I'll go and go here, switch on rotation as well, and go to the next one and set that up as well. So here we want to do our animation. So we want to be larger, and we want to be we want to rotate to about here, and we want to mess with the position, maybe a little bit too large here, so maybe 140 might just work. We may have to go a little bit larger because otherwise I see the black corner here. Do you know, I just said this to Steve earlier. It's always, eventually you'll see, Joe, that there's these complicated interfaces. They fade out into the background eventually. There's one other thing I like doing when I set these things up. I right click and then I add the save margins. It's just a cage that we see here, and it shows me how in the middle that whole thing is. So I think we need to just do a little bit more here for 148. Now it's probably 150. Let's do 150. Just so that that black corner is getting out, so I can still see a little bit. I might just be able to position that. Oops. Position that slightly further up, like so, and it'll be okay. Yeah, ideally I don't want to see the black corner there, but I think, you know, I could put something underneath it. I might do that so that the word can literally be in the more or less in the center here. Yeah, I might put a mask underneath it. Yeah, okay, let's try that. Let's put, it doesn't have to be anything special. We can just go and take the safe margins away. All I need to do is sample this gray, and at least it's not black. That's all we need really. So for that, let's put this onto the second video track so that we have something we can put underneath it. And I'll create a new item, which is a color matte. And we'll just call that, do that, pick that up here, that kind of color, grayish. And I see this is orange now. Oh, because it's picking up the color of my cursor. That's interesting, isn't it? That's very clever, Premiere. I like that. So let's go and switch my cursor off quickly. Pick this up with gray. There we go. And I'll call that gray. And let me switch my cursor back on, because I guess it's more helpful if we can see the orange dot, right? If it's too confusing, the orange thing, let me know. I always think it's a good idea because the cursor is sometimes so small that you don't really know what the guy is talking about. So I'll make sure I set the duration to something longer than 1 frame, because this thing I'd like to be there for, like, say, I don't know, 6 seconds. And then I can just go and drag this underneath here. And now we don't have any black anymore. So it's not perfect, because to really make it perfect, I'd have to make this edge, what's the word I'm looking for? Soft. And I don't have the time to do that. So it'll just be there for just a second. So I think I might just leave that as it is. I might switch the color a little bit. I could even just take that piece of image and put it underneath it. And really, to avoid that edge, we'd need to have a soft edge there, and that would require just, time, and I don't want to spend that amount of time on it. So I'll just, it'll be an animation. We'll barely see it. And I'm just going to have a look where this comes in. It appears to start about here. So I'll go and drag my thing to where it starts and make sure that I leave it for as long as we need it. So now, since we're looking at backdoor and we're not looking at the corner, why's the corner? Oh, the corner changes color. Man, that's not what I had expected. Oh, we can't do it with a static color then. We're going to do it with some color correction then. I can start this darker. We'll put a little color correction filter on this. Okay, we'll put that on the list of things to do. I'll have to go and make sure this bit, which was the frame hold, has the same effects on it as this bit here. So that's important, but we can do that by just going on this frame here. Oops, wrong panel here. Go onto that and then right click onto this clip. And if we're lucky, Premiere lets us do that here. No, we're not so lucky. Can I do it here? I can usually copy and then paste the transformations on here. Like paste attributes, I believe it's called. Paste attributes, but we need to say copy attributes from here. I hope it's not going to go and copy the keyframes, because that's what we don't want. Paste attributes, there we go. Time remapping, motion, opacity, that's exactly what we want to do. Why didn't you do that? That's a shame, isn't it? What a shame. It didn't work. It's probably because I only have 1 frame to choose from here. I suppose even easier is to just remove that last bit then, and then just go on that part here. I can now add a frame hold, and that should take into consideration my effects, shouldn't it? Should it not? Add a frame hold here. And it does, okay. We'll do it that way, that's fine. Okay, let's save the project. I've been badly burned recently with not saving projects or over-saving projects. Depth of field, possibly. Depth of field in Premiere, I've never done that before, Marcos. That would be an interesting idea. I'm not sure if that'll make the edge softer though. I don't know. It's possible. So let me apply a color correction on our gray matte. That should do the trick. That should do the trick. Yeah, color correction should work. So effects, color correction, simple one. Change color, that's also an idea. Let's do change color instead. I've never used this effect, but that might be interesting. Color to change that one, and then we can just change that one color. It's a possibility. Just make that lighter. It's overkill. I'll stick to what I know. I'll just go and say brightness contrast. That's probably going to be enough. Now, ideally, I would change the lightness of the whole thing. So that's probably, there's so many types of color corrections in here. Change to color. Let's try that. That's also something I've not tried. From to. Change one color into another. That's really? That's also no. This the devil's work, man. The devil's work. How about color balance? Will that help us? Is lightness in there? No, it's also not what I'm looking for. Equalize, leave color, tint. Nah. Brightness and contrast. Come on, it's black and white. We can do it. So brightness and contrast. So when we're here, I'll employ the same idea as I did before. Just about here, when we're happy that the color is correct in the top right corner, I'll set a keyframe here and there. And now I'm going to go to the beginning, just when this thing comes in. So this is about here. So I want to make sure about here is another keyframe, and this is the kind of color that we're gonna change now into the one that we need, and then hopefully it's going to just gradually change. So for that, I have to be a little bit inventive, because I have to really zoom into this value so that I can pick it, or that I can match it. So that will inevitably create another keyframe right here where I don't actually want it, but it'll get me there. It'll get me to the right value, so I can then go and move that over to where I need the keyframe to be. So let's see what we can do here. Look at that. That's actually all I need. From here to there, we barely notice it. I might set another one. So the beginning is nice. Here is where it's kind of going off kilter. So I'll just go and match that just by eye here. This is the kind of corner I'm looking at. Again, it's not perfect, but it is, it's getting us there so that it's barely noticeable. It's literally not noticeable at all. The only thing that we do notice now is the first keyframe here, and it's not actually a big issue. I'll just go and move that here, and that to about here. That moves it out of the way. Top right corner, my friends. Barely noticeable. Barely. And just so that we can see it with and without, so this is without this thing. If I had not done that, we would see this, and that is noticeable. But because we're professionals, I tell you, professionals, as soon as we switch it on, we'll be okay. So it's not, I could have rendered this differently. I could have finagled the actual camera move. It's good enough for what we're doing. And I guess that's that. I think that's that. All that remains now is just to render it out. Exactly. It's just, but that if had the corner been black, this is something that really catches your eye. That's why I like sometimes using lights that flicker, because that's where the viewer's direction then just gets redirected to. And the opposite is true as well. As long as something doesn't look too bad, we're okay. Well, let's go and render this out so we can have the world premiere of this in high resolution. That's with the media encoder thing, Control M. And high bitrate will probably be okay for this. Yeah, there we go. Urban Urban Final. I like Urban Final. Let's do that. And it doesn't have audio, so let's not export it. Export. Boom. There we go. Do you know, Rod, maybe that would be a nice title for your stream, Live from Jello HQ. What do you think? That's cool. No, I still like Live from the Lair, Live from Rod's Lair. I think I like that. I like that. Or maybe we can make you a little animation for that when you're starting. That's ready in place. That'd be kind of nice. Christina can use Ruffle already. That's good. That's good. So while Premiere is rendering, he's still got a couple of minutes to go. Maybe I'll go and add some of you as regular customers here. Let's see. I believe it'll be easier for me if I can copy your names from the chat. So let's. It doesn't work here. That's a shame. Will it work? Will it work like that? I may have to watch my own stream in order to get an actual text window in which I can context sensitively just copy and paste your names. That'd be really good. But it doesn't quite work that way. Because whenever I right click on one of your names, it comes up with the context menu that says, what would you like to do? Would you like to ban this person? And I'm thinking, no, I just want to go copy paste here. That's all I want to do. Sometimes it's not possible. Can we do this? Oh, I think I can do that. I just have to copy more than I need. And some of your names are easy to just type out again. There we go. You're a regular. Add regular. There we go. Oh, that's not how it works. Ah, okay. So I'll go and I'll start with Rod. Rod Shelley, right? There we go. Let's do that. You're going to be a regular. Mass, thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate that. Very cool. Brian is already. Hello, Brian, by the way. Nice to see you. How's editing headquarters? Real_0 Calvin. I'm going to make you all regulars just so that you guys can go past the bot in regards. You can cap spam, basically, is what I'm saying. Let's go Joe next. Trzaskowski. It was Trzaskowski rather than Trzaskowski, right, Joe? Let me know. There we go. That's that. And we have Strakowski. Okay. I think she said it was Strakowski rather than Strakowski. It's, you know. And who else have we got? The captain. Control Marcus. Let's do that. That's also CTRL_S__Marcos. You be a regular. You want to be kept off as a regular? You're included. You're on the list. You're on the list. And then we have the captain. Steampunk Belladonna is already on it. And I believe Chris is a subscriber, so he's not affected by it, I believe. Do I know that? Well, we'll find out. We'll find out next time. Oh, the captain's messages were purged, weren't they? That's fine. Ah, man. Twitch. The nightmare. Captain, if you say something again, I know exactly the spelling of your name. I believe it's Captain... Oops, there we go. I believe it's Captain Slaymore. I believe that's what it is. So I'll just make you a regular like that. And if that's incorrect, we'll go and respell that. Premiere's finished. That's good. Let's have a look what Captain Slaymore. Thank you so much, Christina. That's, yeah. I think that's how I have spelt it. Is it? Captain Slaymore. Yes, I have. Good stuff. So nice to see him again. So under renders, Let's get ready for the world premiere of the high-resolution version of the Urban Future 7 final animation in high res. And now that there's more resolution, I can actually see the background action more. I could make out the blue glidey thing, and I can make out the people a little bit better. And now, of course, comes the most important thing, which is the backdoor logo. And since that's where our attention is, no one's looking at the top right corner. It's perfect. I can see it when I've got this thing on full screen. I can't see it, but it's, you know, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. At zero, oh, you're selling Twitch followers as well, Brian. That's amazing. I hear it's a good business to get into. This is good. Okay, I think before I send this to you, Steve, I might ask Premiere to re-encode that at a slightly higher data rate. I can see just a few artifacts that you probably won't be able to see on the stream, but I can see that the still images actually look better than what Premiere has compressed, and that's probably just because it's used a codec that didn't have a high enough data rate. So I'll fix that by just making Premiere create a larger file essentially, and then you can use it for editing and stuff. It probably won't make a difference when you send it out on the stream, but it's always one of those things with meta. This is the phenomenon I'm talking about, is technically called meta blocking. So that's all these images are technically being rasterized into little blocks like tiles, like the render tiles, and even what we can't see with our eyes is computers can pick that up, and they then tend to enhance a line that isn't there on the first line of vision, if you know what I mean. So it's not something that's visible now, but if you were to recompress it and send it out on another stream that has that uncompressed and recompressed, then sometimes the quality suffers because subsequent encoder passes will pick these things up, and I want to avoid that's happened. So there we go. That concludes, my friends, the first part of our stream in which, I've been editing this stuff. So that's good. That's good. We've got all that under control. Now we're ready for the second part, which is, of course, playing with Carrara. So there we go. Back to 3D. And I've missed your first stream, Steve. I can't believe it. I'm sure we'll get a schedule down that works for all of us. So let me show you what I'm looking to recreate. Is that here? I wish I knew where that was now. It could be here. It's probably in here, so we can look at that, but I think I have it as a clean separate version as well somewhere. No, I guess I don't anymore. Yeah, I guess I don't anymore. Maybe it's in here. Let's have a look at this. This is the loop that I sent out during the beginning, and part of it is this. There we go. This is the animation that I'm looking to recreate. That's the underwater, my logo underwater. It appears to be swimming in the water, and that's a really neat effect that Carrara can do. And that is something that comes as part of a preset scene to illustrate how caustics work. So the neatness of this effect really is that the scene is super simple, and we'll have a look how it's built. There's literally just my logo. Then there is a considerable gap. There appears to be a plane, and that plane has really nothing on it, and above the plane is the camera. And then the other thing is that we have the ball here. And the ball is exactly chapter 2. That's what it is. And the ball is literally just a sphere, again, with a shader on it. And the clever bit about the ball is that it appears to be hovering on top of the water surface. So it's kind of half in there, and it seems to be just rolling around a little bit. And I think they used the Carrara 7 logo. It's just typed out. And the magic about that scene is that it works as an animation. And we'll have a look at how that works. I'm still not entirely sure what the real magic is that they're applying there, but we can certainly have a look. So I'd like for this to be, the reason why I want to redo it is because there are more interesting effects I can get out of the water. This was a rush job really, because I needed that holding loop, but I can make that better and take more time in rendering and really make that look like a really kind of glistening water effect. Let's take a look at it. And the idea is to make it a bit longer, 20-25 seconds, just have that logo drift in there. I don't know, maybe even have a duck swim after it, something like that. We'll work something out. And I'm sure that's doable with Blender. I'll just go and close Premiere before we start officially with chapter 2. That is from DAS, exactly. And it's a program they had actually bought in from a company called Eovia. Where is it? There it is. There we go. It has a different logo on the Mac than it has on the PC, which is why I didn't find it. Don't know why they did that. Yes, it's a program they bought in from Eovia, and they had bought it as a competing product to Poser back then. So when this whole thing started that DAS were establishing themselves as a Poser content provider, they were thinking, hey, we need a software, and we're not sure if we can write one from scratch. Eventually they did, and they had started with their own project, which is DAS Studio, but at that time I think they weren't quite sure if they could be successful with that. And Carrara was a software that was up for grabs. It was compatible with all Poser content up until generation 4, natively back then in version 5 or whatever. And it just so happened that they bought it and left it up and running for a few years, and then they realized we are probably better at writing our own thing. That's my fantasy behind it. And they kind of mothballed it. They're still selling it. It's a very capable program that can do modeling as well as very good rendering, but it hasn't seen an update in years. So if you look at the splash screen, I believe the last update we see here is 2013. I think it was updated after that. I remember buying this update here in the US, and I moved here in 2012. So it has seen an update after that, but it's been very incremental, and so now it doesn't see any updates anymore currently, which is a shame. It's so powerful. So it has this thing, it's got the modeler built in. It works. Let me go and open a scene so we can just go and become familiar with it a little bit. I'll go, and you can, like, there's preset scenes, for example, which are amazing, like this one. Let's use this one, the trumpet scene. Somewhere, was it indoor? No, I think this was, so indoor scenes, and they're all extremely simple. This global illumination, isn't it? Yeah, coordinate HDRI. Let's do that. Let's open that. And so the scene itself looks almost like nothing. They're very low geometric scenes here. I'll go and head to the render tab and just make that image a little bit larger. I think the default is 800 by 600, because back then we didn't have powerful computers. We didn't have 720. We didn't have high resolution monitors and all that. So there we go. This is my framing here now. And if I hit Control R and let it run, it just employs fascinating effects, really. If you ever want to use Carrara, the default tile size is a little bit large, so I recommend you tone that down. But what I love about these preset scenes is that they're not saying, hey, this is complicated to make. You need to buy a product for that, for 20 bucks, for 30, 40, 50 bucks. You go, no, it all comes with Carrara, and here's how you do it in principle. Now, dissect the scene, go work out how it works, and learn something new. This is what I appreciate about Carrara. This is why I still love Carrara. So this is happening. We see reflections here on a wet tile floor. Biased rendering engine, 2 spheres. One has a glass shader on it, which also reflects what seems to be a sky here. And this quite clearly appears to be metal. And the magic about all these images is the shaders, really. Carrara has this amazing shader browser that lets us drag in materials onto any surface and just turn them into literally magic. And this is partly what's so cool about the Caustics animation. Let me see if I can show you another animation here. So browser down here, this is basically the content browser. Under content, you've got your whole DAS libraries. This is like the content tab. Genesis 1 and kind of 2 are compatible with Carrara. You've got all other kinds of things. These are the shaders here. So you have glass shaders that you just essentially pick one that you want and go and drag that onto the object, and that's your shader. And then you say, okay, great, let's render this again. I'll make the tiles a little bit smaller that you can see the effect, and I'll explain why that's a good idea to set them smaller, to 16, 32, something like that. Control R will get you rendering. There, this is what smaller render tiles do. And the reason why that's important is that when it comes to the last tiles, you may find that 1 or 2 threads of your computer are stuck on something. So that means 80–90% of your CPU power is sitting there chilling while the last 2 threads are hard at work. And if you make the tile smaller, it's just, all threads can go and get into the game there. So now the object looks different. That's essentially how the shader browser works. And Carrara is actually sometimes really cheap. You can get it for under $10, and it's it's worth doing. So you got metal shaders. Let's have a look at metal shaders here. Iron ingot. Yeah, let's do that. Let's put iron ingot on here, and then perhaps palladium on this guy here, and perhaps we'll use worn brass on the trumpet. Yeah, maybe worn brass on here, and then perhaps this is another surface here. Perhaps something blue chrome. Yeah, let's put blue chrome. Oops. Yeah, use the existing shade. That's cool. Use the blue chrome maybe on the mouthpiece here. I don't know. And then there's antique copper. We use that on here. The preview, we can make that work better. I'll just over render that, and we can see what the effect of different metals are. But yeah, it's just fun to play with, and it's very capable for animations. This thing, it's just it's just a wonderful program to have. It does landscapes as well. It's just cool. It has replicators that are super easy to use. Mark Bremer has a good course on that on VTC, I believe. He has some good tips. And I must say, for a biased render engine, it's great. It's a very capable program still. But what's even cooler is that you can buy Octane for it. So you can use the front end of Carrara and then just use a different render engine on the output. And Octane's Octane. So you'll have all the Octane materials with the power of how to set up these cool tips and tricks like the caustics and like literally everything. Just a quick demo before we carry on here. So I'll go delete that, and I'll go and close that file. I don't want to save that. So what I will start with is in fact a scene. You can have actually let me show you a landscape. Landscapes are fun as well. So you just, again, they're preset scenes, and you go and say, okay, red desert. So you double click that. This is how the scene opens, and we can have a look at that in a moment. I'll just go and make that a bit bigger again. So 1280 by 720. It comes with light types preset. Also comes with the tiles preset, and boom, landscape. And you can generate all these things with generators. You can put more mountains, you can put more bits and bobs, you can put water planes. It's fun to play with. It's literally awesome to create your own world and then go and animate them as well. So again, just preset scenes, you delve in and then you go and have a look how this thing's actually made. So this is just a plane onto which we've added this terrain gadget here. So you do all these things by dragging them in from here, either from these little symbols here. They all mean something like fire, smoke, hair, water, lights, cameras, and all that. Or just a vertex object that you then go and model with in the vertex room. So we're not going to do that here. I'm just going to go and start with the preset and amend it for that effect. Yeah, terrains and all that. It's all exciting. It's all exciting, I tell you. I believe my project, once I close this down, Carrara can, by the way, can have multiple scenes open at the same time. That's sometimes handy if you're working on more than one thing at a time. Carrara can handle that. 64-bit application, which was kind of fundamental for its time. Indeed, Rod. Yes, absolutely. There's also space, indoor, just to tell you what you can do with lighting. There's packaging. Very nicely done packaging shots. This is, I love this. You just go and open the perfume scene, for example, and you'd think, well, that doesn't look like much. But then if you render it, you think for simple illustrations with the right shaders, you can literally do all kinds of exciting stuff. I'm thinking I may use some of these things. I'm inspired by Brian, by the way, by your production technique that you say, hey, maybe I need to illustrate my fiber optic video with a few simple illustrations. So rather than use PowerPoint presentations, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I'll do that for my Streaming 101 series. Sometimes I'm explaining something technical and nothing's happening on the screen for about a minute because I'm talking over it. And I'm thinking, yeah, if we just add a few just illustrative bits to it, that would just make the viewing experience much nicer rather than, nothing, or just a gray screen when I forgot to record my camera feed or something like that, Oh, Christina, that is something worth celebrating. I'll see if we have a coffee scene here that we can use. These caustics take a little bit of time to render here. It's a shame I didn't make the tiles smaller, because this is a good example of what I meant. I have 24 threads at work here, but most of them have finished, and now it's a limited amount of threads that are still working on these tiles. But when this guy finishes, he won't be able to help jump on board and render another small tile, which would otherwise be available. So at that point, my computer is just less efficient in cranking out this render. But I will leave this up and running because it does look quite nice to just see these two quite clear perfume bottles with a shiny silver lid in this wood grain little half Infinity Cove studio thing there, which is of course after midnight. Yes, 2 mugs a day. They didn't say how large the mugs are supposed to be, did they? That's the spirit. 24 ounces fits in my mug. It's cool. It's about 600 milliliters. That's also fine. Or more even. I think 24 ounces is about 800 milliliters. That's nearly a liter of coffee. Well, I didn't know this, Christina, because I'm joining you with a calm chamomile tea. So I'm not exactly on coffee withdrawal. I had a coffee this morning, but I thought, yeah, one a day is good. Oh, they did? Damn. 8 ounces, right? 200 milliliter cups. I saw some nice mugs the other day at the supermarket. They were, while I'm looking at this wood grain, they were made of wood grain. I believe I tweeted that picture. It's kind of a little mug. I think Mana do it with a lid. It looks like a wood grain mug. Stainless steel, insulated on the inside. Very nice. Hey, better than nothing. This is good. And are you still taking that GI tract medication while you're having the 2 cups of coffee? I suppose so, right? So that it's kind of protecting your GI tract from the chemo drugs, I'd imagine. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, Joe Rod's got this magic machine where he's just putting in a little thingy, and then out comes delicious coffee. So I can see why he drinks more than 2 cups a day. Yeah, all those things, glasses of wine, they're really difficult. I mean, I believe there's a wine setup here. We can have a look at that in a second. It's just nice to open these up and have a look at, hey, how have you rendered? So open them up, render this, look at it, and think, how on earth did you make that? Why does that look so cool? That's crazy. By today's standards, they look a little bit kind of dated, but considering that you can buy this for like 10-20 bucks sometimes. I think regular retail price is still like 300, but you know, DAS, they do sales every day to the point where you would never pay full price for something, because, well, why would you really? They've conditioned us over decades to buy things on sale. That's a shame. See, this would be ready now had I switched the tiles to something smaller. So good tip to remember. If you do that, head over to the rendering tab, scroll to the very bottom, and under miscellaneous, you see the tile size. And we just crank that down. 128 is a bit big. But yeah, there we go. Perfume bottles, glass, shiny, transparent. And funny to see the lid here, that the glass is more riffled on the top than on the side. So like a real bottle would be. And if you look closely at how the liquid looks behind it, you think, yeah, that's good attention to detail here. Or things like that the glass is thicker here on the edges than it is here, for example. You know, and the rendering engine just picks all that up. It's very exciting. 65, yeah, that's kind of the full price currently. It is going down. Sometimes you get it for under 10. So put it on your wish list if it comes up. It is worth buying for that price. It is even worth buying for 65, to be really honest. But we don't want to do this. We'll just have a quick look if there is a wine scene available, because I thought there was wine bottles here. Wine bottles, champagne bottles, milk bottles, oil, shampoo, DVDs, paint cans with a lot of metal things in here. There's logos too, that's nice, those are fun. And this is actually here, your logo, that's the scene I want to play with in a moment. There's some things you can do with modifiers that modify a whole object and bend it, and it's just a very powerful program. Yeah, mine is this one here, Waves and Caustics. That's one, but they also have it here as your logo. So it's the scenes are very similar. I think this one's got a colored ball, whereas the one that has, where was that? Where was it? When was something like Caustics? That's this one here. My phone keeps going off. I just put that on silent there. This is one. Where's the other one? Was that in Lightscape Indoors? I forgot where. I've just seen it now. There was another one where they said it's. They just described Carrara 7. Global illumination. There we go. Let's open that. So this is the scene I'm interested in rendering, and I'll go to the director's camera, because that's kind of like the perspective view, and we can just see how they've made that. And it doesn't look spectacular. We've a plane at the bottom. We've got a text object here that we can just edit and turn it into anything really. These things I think we can just go and switch them off. I believe like that and that. So that's just the 3D bits and bobs here. And very high up, so if I go and zoom out a lot, we can see that there's one light source here. Oops. That's the W key to move the scene. It's a little bit, yeah. There's this, and there's one plane up here that we can see, and there's a camera. And there's a tiny object here. I don't know if you can see that. That is the ball. So it appears that we have a floating water surface here, then we have a huge gap with a light source that's coming down from here, a spotlight source, and we have a text object. And when we render that, and once again, I'll go and I do remember it now, I'm going to go and say 1280 by 720. Let's stick with 16:9, keep proportions. On rendering at the bottom here, I'll go and make the tile size much smaller, like to 16. If we go and render that, it looks much more spectacular than what we've just seen in the scene. And I think that is just fascinating about this scene. So the text object has now been deformed somehow. It looks squishy, and if we were to animate it, then the thing actually moves, and that's really fascinating. The only thing that's really animated though in the scene is currently the ball. So if we were to go and render this out as an animation, the only thing that's really moving is the ball, and that just moves like, you know, up and down, and you can only see it because there's that type of shader applied that is technically a checkerboard shader, and that's really it. And the magic about making this happen is in fact in the rendering settings under Caustics. So this is the phenomenal box here. Oh, right. So 285 is the regular retail price, and then 65 is right now, is it? That's the Platinum Club price. Also, there's, by the way, while we're talking about Carrara prices, there's two versions of Carrara that they used to sell. There's the regular Carrara and there's the Carrara Pro. And I strongly recommend you get the Pro version because that has things like texture painting and all kinds of other things that they've locked down in the regular version. So make sure it's Carrara Pro. 8.5 is the current version for the last 6 years. So Caustics is one of those things that's usually not active in render settings. If I disable that and render my scene again, then you can see that all these shiny little effects, they're now gone. So they were made by the Caustics effect. Whereas the squidgy effect, the thing that blurs this word here, that's a shader that's applied on what appears to be the water surface. So we'll look at that in a moment, where and how we can apply that. I believe Carrara's just crashed a little bit. It appears to be still rendering here. But it's taking ever so slightly longer for that than I had anticipated. I think I can just go hit escape to, there we go, that's cancelled that render. So this is Caustics here. This is responsible for these little freckles that we see, and for how the lights shine through the water. I'll go and crank the fill. Let me just go and render this again so that we see the effect with the Caustics, because there's amazing stuff you can do in changing that effect just by changing the Caustics filter. So photon count is 1, so it's currently 180,000. There's intensity and there's filter size. So I like to crank up the filter size to something like, say, 60%. I'll just see what that does. It's nice that when it over-renders it, we can see what the direct effect of that is. So now we see less kind of sparkly bits, and the edges are a little bit less harsh in these sparkly bits that are generated. And in the animation, that's probably going to look better, I have a feeling. If we set the filter size all the way to, well, maybe not 0, but maybe make it 5 here, then we get to see that the ripples are just harsher. They look less natural, or it looks like there's more disturbance on the water. Higher filter size also means longer rendering time, I believe. With filter set all the way to up, there's sometimes that doesn't give you the best results. Yes, they're weird about the Carrara prices. I mean, they've clearly kind of forgotten about it. They dug hexagon out of the drawer, and they're still promoting that, which is kind of a mystery. But they're not really mentioning Carrara, so it's kind of, they will eventually discontinue it, I have a feeling, and it's such a big shame, really. So perhaps something in the middle, like 30, 40 is good. Let me play with a photon count. So it's 180,000 right now. Let me see what happens if I make it lower, something like 65,000. See what the effect is with less photons. It looks like we have less shine through the water. So the bottom plane on which we can just about make out this shadow here, that looks like it's less. So if I set that down to 10,000, let's just see what happens then. Yeah, so I get less of a water perturbance effect, as it were. This looks less, this looks like there's less going on. So I suppose then if I crank this up over 180,000, so this 180,000, let's go and crank that up to 300,000. It's probably going to have an impact on the render time. But still, I mean, looking at how fast this goes, if this was an animation with like 600 to 800 frames, I'm still happy about that. This is still way less than a minute per frame. And I suppose then the other thing is the intensity. So I'll go set this back to roughly the how we started. Intensity from 100 down to 30%. Let's see what that looks like. Less shiny. So we get less of an effect. We get more of an effect almost to disabling it. I guess that's what it would do. And then if we crank it up really high, above 100%, let's say 250%, just out of curiosity, we get a much brighter water. Interesting stuff. So I'm not sure what I'm going to use as the final version. Probably a combination of all of these things. But right now, I think, 1,900%, 9,000% is perhaps a little bit much. There's so much other stuff you can do here. We can try skylight and indirect light, what the effect of that is. This is almost the defaults again. I mean, just go back to the defaults and see what in addition to caustics, an additional skylight effect would have on the scene. So skylight means there's just more light that's being calculated. Indirect light is also, this is another thing we could try. Indirect means anything that's being reflected off objects and then being reflected back into the scene. So it looks like skylight hasn't made a difference here. Makes sense. Let's try indirect light. So that's anything, there's two settings we can use here, full indirect light or ambient occlusion. So ambient occlusion is faking it and indirect lighting is actually calculating it. So this is going to take a little longer, I have a feeling. But depending on the scene, this is also going to give us a more accurate result, especially around light sources. Yeah, like all these things, and with a higher photon count. So this actually looks pretty damn cool. Yeah, I can see all the blooming around the letters now. And again, it's animatable. This is interesting. I wonder if these little dots that we see around here, if increasing the photon count would have an effect on that. If we could get rid of these, let me try that just before we actually get to creating our own thing there. It's not so much render engines, Marcos. It's more the settings of the same render engine. So the idea is that you can switch off what you don't need and then speed up render times. So Caustics is something that if we switch it off for scenes in which we don't need it, the render engine doesn't calculate them, and hence it works much faster, which was more of a problem back in those days than it is today. But I have a feeling that like in today's unbiased render engines, you can't really exclude one. I mean, you can, but it's not as easy as knowing what caustics are, just making sure, hey, I don't have that in my scene, so I'll switch it off. It's, it just became a lot more complicated, I guess. So I won't use indirect lighting Maybe I'll use ambient occlusion just for laugh. Difference between that and ambient occlusion. See what the difference is. Ambient occlusion is, by the way, just in layman's terms, is a fake way of calculating things like shadows. So if you imagine you had a corner somewhere, and without in real life that corner in here, the light would be darker because it's a corner there. And ambient occlusion is kind of faking this corner shadow and just saying how close do two objects need to be together in order for there to be a fake shadow, just kind of painted in. And it works most of the time. It's not 100% accurate, but it's so much faster than having the engine go through there and say, hey, the closer these two edges go together, the more we have to calculate how much light bounces and doesn't reach that corner anymore and occludes one another. So that's what the difference really is between full indirect lighting and ambient occlusion here. But we can totally switch it off, and then we're back to the default, which renders really fast. And we need to have it fairly fast because I want to see the actual effect of the animation that we can generate there. I'll go and not save that, and I'll go, an error has occurred. That's not so good, is it? Are we back here without the error? Looks like we're back. So I suppose the first thing I can do is it 0? Yes, it is 0. So click what you want to bring into focus and then hit the 0 on the top keyboard, and that brings that thing into focus. I suppose I could write out what I'd like to say. So like live from Rod's lair, for example, we could type that out, and then we can have the whole word animate through it. That'd be something. Let's try it out. So in order to, this is a text object, I can see that here. It's a bit like in Blender where we hit tab to go into editing mode. We can double click on on that object, and then it should open up this kind of device here. And this got us to the second tab here. So this is essentially like the modeling tab. An error occurred. I think I may have to restart Carrara. It's not happy with with anything anymore, which is fine. So this is essentially getting us into the second tab here, which is the modeling room. And this looks different depending on what type of object we're changing. I'll just go and close it all down, and then we'll start again. We didn't really, yeah, it has stopped working. No shit, Sherlock. Awesome. There. It's what happens to software if it doesn't get updated, Daz. So yeah, if it's a vertex object, it'll get you into an actual modeling environment. If it's a text object, you can just retype the text. If it's something like a terrain object or replicator object, it'll get you into those types of settings, plant generator settings, and so forth. We'll use this one here, your logo. It's based on the same scene. It just looks a little bit different. I'm not sure what this is here. Oh, this is another viewport here. It's like the inset viewport. From the top and right. This is okay. Well, we'll leave that to be the camera, and we leave this to be the director's camera. I'll go and set the aspect ratio maybe to 800 by 360. I'll make that deliberately small, but that's only because now we can render it really fast, and it's still a 16:9 thing. Actually, this is not 16:9, is it? This is much more than that. And this logo here, oh yeah, we've got the logo now. Sorry about that, yeah. It looks a little bit different, the water effect, different shade and all that. But we can't change the text object because it's a 3D object now. Let's go and put that to that. Then we do that, and then we do that, and then it'll calculate 450. There we go. That's nice. So I think this is now... This is also a text object. Oh, perfect. So then double click that to go here. That's perfect. Your logo, we can say live from Rod's lair. as an example. They just put a bevel on here, so that's kind of cool. And Rod's lair is kind of going into the ground now. It's also very interesting. So we can have that thing just float on top of the water surface here. From here to there, and then we just go and animate it kind of through there if we wanted to. Let's see what this looks like as a still image for now. Oh, I need to set the render tiles smaller, don't I? And we can probably come up with an even funkier shader in the blue here. So smaller render tiles. And the lighting, it looks slightly different than in the other scene. I mean, they're essentially the same. And I don't know if this water animates properly. But just as a little test, that might be nice. Let's see what other shaders we have. Because that blue looks a little bit plasticky. Perhaps there's something, more exciting. It could be a metal, it could be a glass. That'd be interesting to have two reflections. Like red stained. How about that? Let's try that. Oh, we can. The text actually has two surfaces. That's exciting. Let's have blue chrome on the outside then. What, I have to do that per letter? This is asking me, do you want to bring in the same shader definition from a file? Would you like for that to be an independent shader, or would you like to use the existing shader? And I'm going to use the existing one. So if I make a change, we'll see what that looks like. And go move that logo kind of here, just so that we see what the effect is. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think I like this scene too much, because although I appreciate the water, I don't get the same effect of the text distortion like we had in the other one, which I also wanted to speak about actually. Why do we see that that distortion? Yeah, and that's actually not part of this scene. So let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do that on the other scene. Joe, the R in lair is kind of underwater. I suppose the original text that they were using is shorter. It just said your logo, and I believe when we tilt this, then the R comes back, so we can make that happen. And I suppose if you are animating it, you can make it swish from here to there and have a little bit dunk underwater. In fact, that's something I'd like to see. What happens if we put that underwater? What does the text look like underwater? It kind of looks like it's underwater. I just don't know if this animates this type of water. The way they've done it, the way they've made these ripples in the water, is literally just by applying a water shader to this plane here. So they're calling it water. I don't know if it's a water object or if it's just a plane with the shader applied. We'll find out if we double click it. Nothing happens. It's just a plane that they've renamed, and that's probably how I would have done it. The Carrara can do water as well. You can literally create an ocean with an ocean primitive, and that has proper ripples, and that animates really well if you know how to do it. I sadly don't. Let's use the other scene and see if we can bring in the 3D Shenanigans logo and put that underwater. So under scenes, I believe, so that was not it. It was it lighting, lights, indoor space, landscapes? Look, here we go. Global illumination, that's it. Waves and caustics, there we go. So if you do get Carrara, Rod, and if you do want to play around with it, whoops, that's camera one. That'll be the director's camera. You can just go and open that scene, and instead of Carrara, you can go and type live from Rod's lair. Oops, hitting the wrong buttons here. And feel free to apply a bevel here as well. Live from Rod's lair. Oh yeah, by 450 there. And my tiles. Okay, so why does the text distort? Well, the way they've done it March 21st, the first day of spring. All right, see you later, Steve. And I will send that scene to you as soon as I've re-rendered it. Thanks for dropping by, I appreciate that. Oh, and of course, it's the W. So when we go and look at our camera, underneath it we'll find this plane here, this mysterious plane. And that's the one that makes all the distortion. And it actually, whoops. There, that's the one that makes all the distortion, this thing here. And it's so far away, I guess, from the object, because that way this distortion happens more dramatically. I'm just guessing. But it's just a plane, and there's nothing special about it. It's not anything. They're just calling it plane. The special thing about it is literally the shader that they've used. And editing a shader, we've seen how we can bring one in just from the browser on shaders, pick one and just drag it onto the object. But you can also look at the shader properties. So this is a bit like the node editor in Blender, and that is up here, the little texture bar. I believe you can also click on the shader. In the shading tab, you can see the shader, you can edit it from here, get you to the same place, namely this thing. And we see a little bit of a preview here of what the shader looks like. And just applied on a plane, you can move it as well, and you can see that it builds distortions into it. And here you see a little preview of your scene down here. And this thing is happening because they've set a refraction on it. It's kind of it's a bit like the BSDF shader in Blender. I mean, it's a different render engine, but the principle is the same. Whatever you set to 0 here won't be used, and anything that you set here will be used. So like glow is part of the shader, but we've set it to none, so it doesn't do anything. So color is this color, and refraction is the material, which is now the water material. You can see how many other things there are that you could set as that surface, and therefore the distortions would be different. Ethyl alcohol, ice, alcohol, 30% sugar solution. They all look very similar in the preview, and it's really just about digging them out and playing around with them, see what they look like in the final animation. What will actually have an impact here is if you change the color. So I always thought this is a little bit too green. I'll go make that a bit bluer. And then I guess that green is gonna go. This is now green. Now it's been made a bit more friendly here. But yes, that's the magic. If we go and set the plane to invisible, like that, plane's no longer there. The moment we render this again, then we just see the regular boring image. So this is all this whole thing, caustics and the ripples on the water. That's the combination of the shader and of making this thing happen with caustics. That's very nice. So for an animatic, it's really quick to render just this. This happens in 1 second, just to see if the animation itself is working out okay. Oh, Steampunk Belladonna. Hello, hello, hello. I didn't see you there. Nice for dropping by. You're a regular. I believe you can cap spam now. I think the chatbot is still on from yesterday's Shenanigans. So there we go. I thought I'd put the stream into the retro category, by the way, because I thought, yeah, Carrara is kind of retro. So let me, instead of Rod's Lair, let me try and bring in my logo, and I'll switch on that plane again, just so that we know what it is. I don't remember the size of my logo. I don't even remember where exactly I put it. Is it in... It might be in... This is the old... The program is so old that it doesn't actually have the updated Windows dialog. Do you remember this? This is like the old style dialog. So I believe I have to just go drill manually into where my logo might be. That's the fly out logo. This could be it. I'm not entirely sure. Let's just bring it in as it is and see what happens. As we make Carrara crash. Let me go hide the text. Oh yeah, there it is. That's it, isn't it? That's my logo. I'll put it on the side here. And I suppose I can just use the proper rotation in 90 degrees. And in relation to that text object, it's just ever so slightly too small. That should, whoops. Accidentally grabbed the wrong thing here. There we go, that makes it larger. I also want to see the kind of the caption, the camera caption here. So let's go and view the production frame. That's not it. View grid. Is that grid? Where's that again? Show production frame. That's it. There we go. Just so that I don't make my logo too big here, which currently it is. So I just want to. It needs to be fairly small because the distortion effect will bring it to the edges already. So I'll just leave it here and let's go for a quick render, see what it looks like. Windows 3.1 from back in the day, Rod. That's exactly right. Here, look. This is much larger than I had already made my logo. So it's not. This is not quite how it looks like. And also, I need to have a look at the colors. There's obviously no colors applied on that. So yeah. But we'll do that, and I'll see if I can just gradually move it from the left into the right, perhaps, spin it around a bit. And the distortions themselves make for a very nice animation, so I might just leave that. Yeah, look how far we've come, huh, Rod? And also the fact that we remember this. Whew. These things are the keyframes here, and they've only set you can't see it in this preview. Let me go and bring in that ball that is now the sphere. That's it. That's the sphere that's appearing to bob on the surface. So that's how they've done it. They just dunked it into the surface. And the magic of this is also the shader. So it looks, you can see preview of the shader here, and it's just It's just yeah, it's a blended checkers shader made of two colors, white and red, and that makes this. You can have to adjust the highlights and all that. This is how they built the shader. And now you rotate the sphere, and that looks like the ball does its thing. But in order to preview that, I believe we can have like a textured preview. There it is. And now as you step through it, this is how the ball moves. So it bobs up and down. They do that. That's nice. And it also moves around a little bit. So that's very cute. I could take this and turn it into something akin of an anib block and then just go and duplicate that. I might do that, or might do away with the ball altogether. I'll work on that as the last step. I think I'll go rename this into my 3D Shenanigans logo, because fly out logo doesn't really mean that much to me. Oh, did I really just do that? Sorry. So I'm imagining the animation to be about 20 to 30 seconds long in total. So I'm thinking 30 seconds at, or let's say 20 seconds. Let's say 20 seconds. Let's say 30 seconds. Let's say 30 seconds. 30 seconds at 30 frames a second. That's 900 frames. Let's do that. Let's go 900 frames here. That's the total duration. And this slider will set to also that. There. We remember it, yes. And I do like my inset viewport here, so it gets a little, I want to start this on my first frame kind of out of vision, not too close encroaching into the camera. I just want to see what that looks like. If I start that here, and then on the last frame, which will be 900-ish, I want that to just go move out of vision from here to there. That should do that. And that's really all we need. It's as simple as that, because the rest of it should be done with the animation. Let's go and make that text invisible. I just don't want to throw it away. I'll just make it invisible. And we'll see what it looks like. Kind of in the middle, kind of at the front. Hopefully the logo's out at that point. Oh, look at that. Live from Rod's. And it's... Maybe I will just go and it's that keyframe here. And delete that and just move that into here. So we didn't want to see the text object there at all. And it is gone indeed. So yeah, I'd like for the water to just go and do this for maybe 5 seconds, and then at the 5th second, I would like for the logo to start coming in there. That's my plan. But it's kind of difficult to see for me without actually going there. I'm currently displaying frames here. I can switch this into seconds. I might actually do that. So this is currently set to frames. I think I do that under preferences, wasn't it? Probably somewhere under timeline or something. Oh, did we have link protection enabled? Oh, that's an interesting one. Let me just have a quick look at that. Do we have link protection? I don't recall. Link protection. No, it's off. So yeah, you should be able to post links, Marcos. That's interesting. Maybe something is disallowing you that. There we go. Perfect. Of course you can. Yes, absolutely. You're a regular, my friend. You're a VIP. You can post links, of course. Could be under UI. It could be under many places here. If you know Steampunk Belladonna, remind me, where do I set this up from frames to timecode? Could be interface, general scene settings. Is that it? Yeah, there we go. Time units. That's it. SEMT. The Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers, by the way. That did that. So by second 5, I'm seeing the logo encroaching. That's kind of what I want. That's perfect. And then I have a few seconds at the end. Yeah, that's exactly what I want. Let's just have a look at frame 5th second. Works for me. That's good. That's good. I like it. Boom. Animation finished. That's it. All I need to do is render this out. Now let's see if we can move the ball, because I do like the. Actually, let's fix the lighting first. Let's fix the lighting first. So about in the middle here, we do have a light in the scene, which is the spotlight here, and we haven't set up the. Oops. We haven't set up the shader for my text. But I have a feeling if we just increase the light itself, that's probably going to do us some good. Range, I'll leave. I'll just increase the brightness a bit to say 250. Let's see what happens. That makes everything brighter underwater. We still got that green. I suppose that's now greener than I wanted it to be. So I guess if we just make that 200 and just take care of that keyframe, that doesn't really get in the way here. Delete that, do that. It's very convenient, the Carrara timeline, to do that. That, and then there's also the shader here. That's the shader on the plane, which I might actually rename that. Whoops, I might rename that water, just so that I know what it is. Spot is actually, what is the spot? That is actually our light. I'll call that one light underwater. And then plane. Plane is in fact our background in a way. There's also light 1. What's light 1 again? Isn't that what I just renamed underwater light? So which one is light 1 then? Oh, that's coming from the top, is it? Right. This is kind of the skylight then. Light underwater. I'll call that one light surface. There. Rotoscoping. Wow, that is very cool. So it just does this and that, and it's fairly. I mean, the way you deal with keyframes in Carrara is just absolutely magical. I don't quite recall how you set things up as non-linear tracks. I mean, this is something. Perhaps we should save it and perhaps investigate it. See if we can figure it out. Wow. I'll put that under. Perhaps it's time for a new folder here. In fact, let's treat ourselves to a new folder. Call that one Carrara animation. I'll call that 3DS Underwater 1. Oh, and this is another thing very handy on Carrara. It's the export dialog. So it lets you save everything internally so that you don't have to worry about. It's basically like pack all files in Blender. That's what it does. It saves all the reference things internally in one Carrara file. I can share it. I can give it to somebody. You can open it up and everything is in that one file. Use local settings is the default setting, and save all externally means that anything that's referenced will be left on those other drives. So this is like just referencing network drives. Whereas local settings, I believe, copies them to the current drive, and all internal will bring anything into that file and packs them. So I'll use all those just in case. Good point. Thank you so much for reminding me. What's it set to now? So this is, how do you set that again? You can set the interpolation here on, whoops, sorry about that. On these things, you can see what interpolation is set here, but I don't remember how you set them. Is that it? They're looking good to me now, but if you can remember how to, oh, there it is. There we go, the Bezier tweeners, that's it. This is what you mean, right? So select the thing in the timeline here, and then up here you can select what you want this to, how you want the tweener to act, like linear, or you want a noise. Noise is exciting. Noise is super cool. Look what happens to the position of the logo now. It literally just goes, noises up and down. This is great for random flashing and all that. That's the noise tweener. Or you can go and do formula oscillate. Super exciting for things that you want to go. That is just fun, isn't it? Let's watch this in the large viewport here. That's what an oscillation thing would do. So I could maybe actually go and have the ball oscillate. That's a cool idea. So it's only animated the first few bits here. So I could just have the ball oscillate between two values. That would be cool, wouldn't it? What else we got? Linear is literally just linear. So it's good for turntable animations when you want something to literally just be loopable and spin around. Noise, spline, velocity. What's velocity? I'll leave it at Bezier, come on. Then it's kind of, it has an automatic ease in and out applied to it. But the ball here, I'd love to maybe use the, I'd love to use the rotational thing on the ball. That would be kind of nice to see if oscillation will help us there. So they put a bobbing and a motion that way. So I'll go and say on the sphere, I'll just go and, can I copy that keyframe here? Or duplicate that keyframe? Maybe the ball needs to be selected for that. Or maybe I need to go and, do I zoom in there a little bit? It doesn't really let me duplicate that keyframe, that's a shame. But it's kind of easy to figure out. It's not, Control D doesn't work. Nah. But it's easy to figure out. It's easy to figure out. Boy, we should do Carrara stuff more often. So on here, all I need to just familiarize myself is what is the, which rotation do they use? It's the X rotation, isn't it? Is that X? It rotates around all of them here. Let's see if we can continue that from here, and then we'll go and use that's the camera. I'll go and have a closer look at that. When you hold down the U on the keyboard, that's like switching the gizmo temporarily to this thing, which is the universal manipulator, this thing here. So you can hold down U and then apply the things that you want to tweak here, which I've forgotten which ones they were now. Oh, Y, there we go, Y. How do I go to the next keyframe? I'm sure there was a way, I just forgot how to do it. Yes, it's super handy to bring them across to render nodes. Yeah, how do I bring it to directly to a keyframe? That was a trick. I just forgot how it works. It's like in DAS, we've got this thing about how to navigate from one keyframe to another. How do I do that here? Is this the next keyframe? Huh, easy. It's not stepping through. That's nice. Next keyframe there. That is me, isn't it? That's the sphere. Yeah, cool. So on the y-axis, we need to do a bit of rotation here now. So now it rotates in all axes, does it? Maybe the Z as well. Let's do that too. Okay, so now if we try and use this tweener, I'll just leave the beginning animation intact here, and then I'll go and change this here to an oscillate tweener. So we've got choices like sine, square, sawtooth, triangle, bounce. We'll just see what works, shall we? So it'll just rotate, or it'll just oscillate between these values here. Bounce does this. That's almost like what we're looking for. And then we can do the bobbing up and down. We'll do the bobbing motion like they had here as well. We'll introduce that there as well. So this would be oscillate. Oh, sorry, this is oscillate with a bounce. This is oscillate with a sine wave. And then, of course, also a number of oscillations. Maybe we'll crank that up to 10. So now it's just our ball is kind of bouncing. Is it too much, maybe? It could be bouncing too much compared to how it starts bouncing in the beginning here. It just does a little bit here. Yeah, maybe we're rotating too much in this direction there. But again, that's easy to fix. I don't have to fix the whole animation. I'll just fix one value and just make sure that axis stays further in that spot here, I guess, you know. To actually get that, I think I have to switch this to just Bezier again. Otherwise, I won't know what I'm actually doing here. Oh, I see. So it's this keyframe that we need to take care of. It's this position that we need to take care of. So other than, whoops, there, 0 on the keypad to bring that into focus. So other than oscillate, there's also, oh sorry, with sine wave, there's also the bounce. Bounce, and we'll do that, maybe crank that up to, I don't know, 8. So then over the course of the animation, it does this. So bouncing is kind of nice. I like that. So it looks like the subtle motion of a ball, I guess, on the water. Could do that. Or we can literally just try and make these few keyframes on the sphere on the bottom here, the one that they started it with, and try and turn that into non-linear track. That's another option to do. Let me go save this over, and then we'll try that option. I'm kind of keen to just try that out, you know. You know, I've tried to, I had an idea the other day about how we can deal with versioning files like that. And I mentioned this to Brian on the Discord. We could do it exactly like we take care of code, of software code, that we, rather than save several versions like this, like I just did, file save as, and then just add another number to it, we can just use version control to do that. And the advantage of that is that we can just use Control S whenever we feel like it, and then go to a separate program and type in a comment of what's actually changed on that version. And then we do a commit of that file. That's beneficial. So I might start doing that in the future. It's just, you know, I have a feeling it might just be more beneficial. So I go delete that keyframe, and I'll see if we can work out. Steampunk Belladonna, help me out here. If you remember non-linear tracks in animations, I believe you narrow down the animation. I think you select the item you want to save as a track. Then you go to clips down here, and then you do what? Animation, create keyframe, create group. So they are interesting because they're a bit like the animate animations that you create clips that way. But I forgot how to do it. I'm like you. I just forgot how it works. Because then we can just preserve these 3 keyframes and have them repeat over and over. Right. Yeah, I can understand that. Those are the sound files, and those are the clips. Does that got anything to do with the browser here? Clips. There we go, my clips. But how do we create a new one? Come on, we've got to work it out. I believe it was very simple. I think you just dragged what you wanted into this thing on the right, or into the browser, and that became your clip. Add folder, that's not it. Yeah, BVH, I think BVH files, that's another story, I believe. If I remember, Phil Wilkes does a good course on Carrara. That's available from DAS. And you NLA tracks. Oh, there we go. NLA groups. But how do we graph editor? This is kind of the dope sheet. Snap reverse mirror. That's not what we want to do. NLA tracks. Do I need to create a new group in here somehow? I don't remember. It was so super simple. Yeah, literally his video is like 5 minutes long. It was worth us watching that now. Is that how you do it? You just go and drag this into clips? Is that how it is? No, it can't be that simple. I'm sure it's not that simple. Group duplicate, no, this is not it. That's a shame. I wish I could find out now. Do you know, we may do this next time. That'd be so cool to use this animation and use this kind of principle on the ball. And once we're done with that, I'm thinking maybe we should also use the text version of this. So instead of my logo, I can just go use this text, and we can maybe make an animation for Rod that just goes and, you know, bobs up and down the water and says live from Rod's lair. What do you think? Is that a cool idea? Let's do that. I'll read up on this. I'll read up on the non-linear tracks here. I'll go and save my scene before I forget. And yeah, so if we're happy with this effect, I'll go and render out an animatic overnight, and perhaps we can have a look at the results tomorrow. And then we can work on the bobbing ball, perhaps, work on the light somehow. I think that's a good idea. Is he? Oh, Steampunk Belladonna, I don't know. I didn't know about this. Cripe Man, this is great for all the cancer survivors out there. Cripe Man used to be an avid Carrara user, and he used to make hilarious tutorials. It's exciting stuff what he did, and his channel is still there. And there came the point at which he got cancer, and he was also up for immunotherapy. I think he was on chemo, and then he made a video about the fact that he was on immunotherapy, and then I haven't heard anything from him again. So I don't know what happened to him. Is this official news that he's passed on? Is that right? Because if it is, I'm very, very sorry to hear that. I hope it's not the case. If he's still around, do let me know. Yes, he was an avid Carrara user, and guys like him, that's, you watch this stuff and you think, yeah, man, Carrara is the way to go. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane with Carrara as a retro stream. Join me tomorrow for the devastating conclusion of that animation and how we can make some more properties here with really simple effects. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I appreciate all your support. I appreciate you dropping by. And it's very, very sad news to hear that Cripe Man has passed on. I certainly hold his memory dear. What a shame. What a shame. Hey, if you're watching up there, my friend, we're thinking of you. Take care.